Today we're doing 30 rapid fire build tips in 10 minutes for all levels of players in Satisfactory. Let's get into it. When it comes to building the foundations of your first factory, make sure to hold down Control so that you stick the foundations to the world grid. This means that they can align up with any other factory within the world. Just make sure to use the 2 meter or 4 meter foundations. Possibly the best tip for building in Satisfactory is the ability to copy via looking at an item and then pressing the middle mouse button or the scroll wheel down. This will allow you to copy whatever item you're looking at to place it. Did you know you can also, with barriers, use them to place walls? Now with walls we can replace them via holding Control, but we can do this by replacing a barrier as well. This makes it fantastic for building interesting shaped wall designs. Another great thing about the barriers is that you can snap foundations to them as well. Using this same barrier trick, we can also create cavity walls. This allows us to transport our power within a small section of wall that is not dedicated to factory space. You can snap buildables in line by holding Control whilst you're building. Now I love playing with curves and going off grid. However, I hate Z fighting. Thankfully, there's an easy fix to this at the moment. 90% of the time, all you need to do is change the material and then change it back and it should be fixed. I think most of us like to play with right angles for our conveyors and pipes. Thankfully, this is really easy to do. Once you have your start position for your conveyor, you then need to take your conveyor pole and go 2 steps down. So 1, 2, and then 2 across. 1, 2. You're going to rotate the pole and connect them together. You can do this with the pipeline support as well. 1, 2, and then across 2. The only thing that you may need to bear in mind is that you have to change the build modes for the pipes in order to get those right angles. Speaking of build modes, you can either do this by pressing R on items such as the conveyor or the pipeline, or by holding R, which will reveal the radial dial so that you can choose which style you want to use. Did you know you can place a splitter directly onto an elevator? You can also do the same with a merger as well, and both of the inputs and outputs will work. Speaking of elevators, they have a max height normally. However, if you attach them to a floor hole, you can attach it all the way to another one without needing to worry about the height. It's unlimited. Did you know you can change the color of the build hologram? Do this by going to Options, then User Interface, and then changing a hologram color. I highly recommend a gray or white color because it makes it much easier to see the inputs and outputs, as well as where the items are being placed on the foundations. The easiest way to create curves in Satisfactory is to grab the catwalk crossing, then once you've placed one at the corner of a foundation, hold Control and then pivot it 1 degree in the direction you want to turn. We're then going to drag it out twice and repeat this process until we've got the curve that we want. From here, you can snap foundations to the walkways. Alternatively, you can use blueprints. I've talked about that in a recent video, so I'll link that up in the top right hand corner now. Beams are possibly one of the most underrated items in Satisfactory. They're very useful for building because they allow us to snap items to them. We can also use them for signs. Now, if we place a beam like this, you can see we can place a sign here. However, if you want to do it horizontally across the top, all we need to do is turn the painted beam by holding Control and then placing the sign on top. One thing when it comes to signs is I highly recommend using them for light or highlighting your build. First, get rid of the icon and the text and then change the background color to whichever color you want. And then from here, turn the emission strength up. Doing so will create a bright glow, and you can also copy and paste these to multiple signs. The fastest way to build foundations in Satisfactory is not zooping. The fastest way is to grab yourselves a 4x4 blueprint, and from here we're just going to be placing these, snapping them in the blueprint build mode. it's much quicker. Another thing that we can do, if we only want to select one type of item to be dismantled, is by holding Control during dismantle and then clicking the mouse button 4. This will allow you to only select the one type of foundation that you selected at the beginning. You can also change the key binding it's set to by going down to toggle specified multi-select dismantle. If you're wanting to use a specific customizer option, of course you can use the radial dial. However, you can also do this in the build menu itself by going across to this section here and then choosing specifically the concrete wall. Here you'll see that these are now on show every time we open these up as the primary item. Here's a cool lighting tip. If you grab a tilted wall, you can place this down, add a wall-mounted floodlight, and you can see that this allows you to light up a factory rather than always using light facing down. Just be careful, sometimes this can affect your graphic card performance. Don't you just hate it when the outputs aren't perfectly centered? Well, thankfully, if we grab the barrier again, you can hold Control and place the barrier on the front of a miner, then replace or place at the bottom the catwalks, and from here we can add ourselves a foundation, snapping them to the walkway. But what this does is allow us to centralize the miner on a foundation, allowing us to place a central conveyor line. Speaking of centering outputs, if you grab yourselves a water extractor, normally you have to free place it. However, you can place these on top of foundations, and this will allow you to snap to the grid also, which will allow us to have clean pipes centered leaving the extractor. In case you weren't aware, rails transport power, which means you can connect two factories together by using train stations, as they will be able to connect the power between the two, as you can see here. Another great tip when it comes to building and using power, you can grab a power pole and click on a cable, and from here we can directly connect that cable to a power pole. Just remember that if you do delete the power pole, you're going to have to reconnect the previous connection. Often people struggle with signals in Satisfactory, but a golden rule to bear in mind is when it comes to junctions, always do a pathing signal going into a junction and a block signal going out. Of course, you can do the whole network with block signals should you wish. Also, if you're doing a pathing signal in, make sure that you're using a path signal on all the entrances. As you can see here, this is going to be flagged up as warning and not right. However, if we swap this for a pathing signal, you'll notice that these are now working. Again, make sure to block on the way out. One great tip to bear in mind when building factories is to use logistic floors. Keep them out of the walkways so that you keep the factory floors clean, and then you have all of the logistics going on underneath. Another great tip comes with pillars. Now, these are fantastic for adding detailing to your factory builds or making them look more supported. But you can also change the angle of their placement by holding down Control and then rotating the mouse wheel. This will allow you to change the positioning and angle, and you can do this multiple times. You can also use beams. These are fantastic for giving you more control as to where you place items, such as your pillars once again, because these snap on top of the beams. And another thing to consider with pillars is if you're using elevators, you can grab your framed pillars and you can encase those elevators using those frames to give it a more structured or industrial look. But there you are, guys. That's 30 tips for better building in Satisfactory. I hope you found them useful. If you did, please do hit the thumbs up. And if you want to see more, don't forget to subscribe. And if you're wondering what to watch next, why not check out my recent video on my Satisfactory storage blueprint Let's Play that we recently put out. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Special thanks does go to all of our amazing supporters on Patreon, most notably our Solarclipse patrons, James Irwin, Firefless, and Trebor, as well as our Lunars, the Calamity, Ben, Star, Shoku, the Emin Wolf, and That Dude W, as well as our Blood Moon of the day, which today is the City Rat. Until next time, as always, ciao for now.